to you. I have played it. It is absolute shenanigans, as you'd imagine, and it really does feel like, it's like, well, I'm gonna shove you into this pile of zombies, let them gnaw on you a bit while I
Yeah.
while I run the other way. It was pretty great. Uh, Now, the next one
Yeah.
is a very intriguing one to me. Um, because this takes its source from a completely different stance than what you normally do. And you're smiling. I think you know what I'm talking
I,
about.
I, I know where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Nevermore, based
Yeah.
on Edgar Allan.
Yeah. Nevermore is again. This is back to one of my designs, and this is one again. Like Cutthroat Caverns, I really like the design job on this. It's like a little badge of honor for me. Um, this grew out of a poker game, actually. Um, the When I play poker, as I kind of indicated already, I like dealer's choice games, and so if you've ever played a game called Pass the Trash in poker,
Hmm.
it's a game where you get dealt five cards, and as much as you love them, the first thing you have to do is like pass three of them away to the left, and then you get
Yep.
cards passed to the right. Take a new look, now you pass two. Take a new look, pass one. And poker players curse my name every time I call this game. Poker players hate Pass the Trash because it completely messes with what poker is.
Right.
Yeah.
There's actually a really great strategic way to play it, but you're playing for like the high pair, right? You're
Right.
looking for like I'm gonna pass sixes and hope, or I'm gonna start collecting sixes or deuces. Like people, because normally they're like, oh, I'm gonna try to get the best hand. Well, yeah, but you're never gonna get a flush. Sorry,
Right.
So, in any case, one night, I called this game with my buddies playing poker one night, and again they almost want to quit after playing it. And so I was giggling to myself driving home one night doing this, and I was like, it's actually a really cool mechanic, that passing mechanic.
Mhm.
I wonder, like, what if there was more than one winning hand? Instead of just like one winning hand, what if there were like five winning hands you could potentially get? And they all delivered different rewards. Well, that was the idea that became Nevermore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, how did you come up with the inspiration behind the theme of Nevermore with the crows?
So that's one that actually came afterwards, for sure. And the it's a two-part answer. The first is originally it was going to be called A Murder of Crows, but that game
Right.
existed,
Right.
um, and it was quite heartbreaking to learn that. Um, so then I was scratching my brain, like I could not figure out. I so loved that theme. I couldn't get beyond it. And then I also realized something about gameplay. Originally, Nevermore had player elimination, and it became clear that it couldn't have it.
Right.
Not only was it falling severely at disfavor in the game industry, but it could happen early in the game, which is like the worst thing.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming up with, kind of like Student Bodies did, a way that players could transform their state. So if you did really poorly and you lost all your life points, you ended up not dying, but transforming into a raven. And I was like, oh, that one. That's cool. I like the theme of it, and now you got a whole new way to play the game as you struggle to regain your humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it creates a whole second kind of strategy and interest level. Some people, again, like Student Bodies, want to become ravens because they enjoy that state of the game. But
Sure.
in any case, um, once I had that idea of player transformation, I was daydreaming a little bit about it, and I was like, well, how did Poe's Raven come to be? It seems sentient, or at least he believes it is. It speaks a human word. Was this Raven once human? And if so, how did it get to be like this?
Yeah.
And so once I had that idea, I was like, well, so maybe there's like this kind of otherworldly undercurrent to this game that explains how Poe's Raven came to be, and therefore that's when it became Nevermore. And when I gave the illustration assignment to the illustrator who did it, I gave like a couple different directions, and she came back with like, well, here's a version of Poe, and here's a version of, and I had this one vision. It was a big, like, again, the murder of crows. It was a big storm of these ravens flying up.
Yeah.
But I told her, I always like to give illustrators like the ability to do their job and create. So I said, and here's like the important moment of the game is like, there's this idea of transformation. So she ended up doing a sketch of a raven with a human eye. It's the last vestige of their humanity, just before they're completely a raven. I'm like, oh my god, that's great! I absolutely love it. That is the whole thing right there.
No.
Yeah, I have to say, for the simplicity of the art in this is probably one of the most beautiful games I've ever played.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I just pulled up the artist. Hannah Kennedy was the one who illustrated this. Yeah, this one popped every time we would see it. It was just, it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
It was one of the prettiest games that we've seen. Not to put down your art, like I hope that doesn't sound that way, because your art is phenomenal too. But yeah, I remember like seeing the cover, and that's almost nightmare fuel.
Well, just even the cards themselves, they're so simple. They just have simple symbols on them, but just the way how they just pop in your hand or people see them, it's really nice.
Yeah,
cool.
This is definitely a case where Hannah did all the illustration for the actual cover, and when we did Spectres of Nevermore and had the player characters based on Poe's literary works, she did all the illustrations for those characters. But the card set was actually me. Now I really just was more a graphic artist, and I combined a bunch of images that I sourced. But there was a feeling I was going for. I wanted to feel mystical. I wanted to have a little bit of a tarot feel without being a tarot. But to give you that sense, and again, so much of what I value in games, especially games that I produce, is I want to leave you with a feeling. Both in the game and through the mechanics and through the expression of the elements, how you feel playing makes a difference to me.
Yeah. Now, and this is another weird question. Since you made the graphic design for the cards, but for the first thing I'm noticing, I have a picture of the cards showing for the viewers. I'm noticing the whole background, everything follows like the edges of the actual symbol itself, like. It's not immediately obvious, but like the cups, everything comes swirling up from the middle. Everything's swirling around the swirls of the swords. Everything's fine edged. But my background being in playing cards, I can't help but ask: are these symbols based off of the suits? It looks like they are.
Well, so again, whether the suit be tarot or whether the suit be playing cards. There are iconic images that feel representation of like a suit. Now I didn't want text on these cards. I wanted it to be simply beautiful visual. You just had to know that you had an attack card, that you had a healing card, that you had a victory card. So I chose icons that were evocative either of suits of tarot or playing cards, or that simply made sense for the thematic. So the Raven card just needed a big raven with a swirl, because the swirl is like, that's like your transformation, right? And in any case, there's so it was all purposeful, but I didn't sit down and say, all right, I need cups, swords, and this. I just whatever felt right.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for telling us that background into that.
Yeah.
And real quick before Daniel do that, do you need a break or are you ready to keep going?
Keep going.
All right. I remember, and before we introduce the next three, sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I remember this year. It was one of the years I went and talked to you at Gamma, and you said that this was a big moment in your company where you stopped printing just one game a year.
Oh.
And you moved on to 3 titles per year. And this was one of those original 3, if I'm not mistaken. Daniel, take it from here.
You're going to make me try to pronounce it?
Jacques.
Okay.
Jacques. It's Jacques.
So I remember playing this one. I think you're the one that actually showed it to me. You got it from Gamma. And I really enjoyed it. It kind of gave me like a Clue, Sherlock Holmes type thing, but with a Pink Panther feel to it. So,
So interesting that you say that. Yeah. So here the designer was a good friend, and he'd been part of my instigator team, and he showed me kind of on the sly, a game he was working on. He wasn't calling it a pitch, but of course I realized, oh, this is a pitch.
Strange how that works.
Yep. So Jonathan had this game and he showed it to me, and I thought it was really cool. I mean, I agree. I always characterize it like it's reverse Clue.
Yeah.
Because you have to put together the murder weapon and the opportunity, like essentially the location. And all these different elements have to kind of come together, and then really what the game is, though, you're not trying to figure out who done it, because you all killed this guy. You all ganged up and killed him, and now you're just trying to frame someone else so that they go to prison and everyone else is scot-free.
Right.
So it's fun, and when we came up with the illustrations that were done by Malin Falch, I wanted something that felt a little bit like 1920s, and I wanted something that felt a little realistic, but mostly cartoony. And it very much felt kind of like Clue-style illustrations in the end. Mm-hmm. And then I think where you're getting the Inspector Clouseau is, I did a promo card that you can call up on the screen too. The promo card, we added some extra rules for the game that I probably should have put in the core game, but we came up with them after the game was printed. And so I created some new art in a different style for these promo cards, but because it was going to be a different style, I ended up going with like a Pink Panther idea for this French inspector, and it was just fun to do. So,
yeah, I will pull that up later for our viewers. But yeah, because I remember having those promos when I was demoing it at the shop. One of the best things about this game is just how memey it is. Like, constantly for years after, and I still have people coming up to me just out of nowhere. Like, we'll be playing, I don't know, something like Dominion, and someone will play a witch card. So you take a curse. Jacques, you take the curse. It's just out of nowhere. It'll bring back wonderful memories. Yeah, it was constantly, every game that had any kind of betrayal, just constant. It was you, Jacques. Yeah,
well,
that was great.
So that's one of the things that I kind of look for. Even going back to Hex. Hex, when you play it, there's one card that is actually called Hex, and it requires you to drop your hand and throw your hands in the air, and it creates this big chain reaction at the table. Well, that is something that's so visually stunning when you see it, especially if you're walking convention hall. It draws a crowd, and not only do I like games that are emotionally evocative, and anytime you're like physically involved, or you've got like a line that is just fun to give during the game, you're creating drama and narrative and fun, but you're also drawing people to the game. So Jacques, one of the things I did love about it was that people loved to act out calling Shacuse on people, or even just like, when they would say, I think it was you because, and they'd like lay all their evidence down. Sometimes they'd act it out. Or if the evidence got laid on you and you're going to sneak out of it, you're like, you'd be like, oh, I wouldn't be caught dead in that swamp. In these heels, ridiculous.
Yeah, and I love how you have the dialogue lines like a flavor text, but it encourages you to play. It's like, how dare you accuse me with this outrageous accent? Yeah, it was that must have came from your theater background. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, let's go on to the next one. This is one of my go-to party games. Go for it.
Dead Last.
Dead Last.
I love the Prisoner's Dilemma part of this game. This is probably the best iteration of the Prisoner's Dilemma I've ever seen.
Yeah. This is a game that was designed by Matthew Grosso and Andy Patton. And they presented it to me, and I just immediately fell in love with it. The game was originally called Tontine, which is an age-old contract where like lots of people would like pool their money into essentially like a retirement account, and the proceeds would end up going to like the last survivor of the Tontine. I
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think Archer did a show on the Tontine.
Okay.
In any case, they ended up becoming outlawed because occasionally people who were interested in gaining those riches would find ways to off some of the other participants, ensuring that they were going to be the one to inherit all the rest of it. So, in any case, this was it's a game that plays 6 to 12 players, and regardless of how many players you have, it plays in just about the same amount of time. And it does feature like player elimination, like round to round, but then like a minute and a half, you're back in the game. So it's got lots of opportunities to collude and conspire against other opponents, but you always have to change who is going to get conspired against. So there's no like real. It's not as much king-making. You're just like, you know that eventually you are going to be turned upon, and alliances are very, very tenuous. But one of the things I loved about this game is that, and essentially, if you've not played, you all end up voting on who's going to die next by taking a card out of your hand. It's a voting card, and it has someone's color on it. So if you're the blue player and I play the blue card, I'm hoping that enough blue cards get revealed that you are going to be dead and eliminated from this round, and therefore don't get the gold at the center of the table. But if I'm trying to convince other players to get on board the blue train and take you out, I can't let you know that, because you can then play an ambush card if you see it coming. So now when we reveal all our cards, and yes, you got the most votes to kill you, you say, ambush, saw it coming, you stay alive, and then you kill one of the people who is coming after you. Because of that, we all have to conspire as secretly as we can. Now, there are no rules. You can get up, you can whisper in someone's ear. Sometimes people like flash cards to people. They'll indicate colors of clothing to indicate a target. Anything goes. I've seen people text. It's all good. And what's delightful about it is, eventually the game comes down to like 2 or 3 players left, and then you get a Prisoner's Dilemma mechanic. And if you enjoy Prisoner's Dilemma, this delivers a lot of juice in that regard too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it handles so well. It's such a high player count, and it's so much shenanigans. And I'm glad you actually brought it up. I was going to ask you, what are some of the more creative ways you've seen people communicate in this game, because I remember you telling me about the like, oh well, I'll just casually flash the card at you, or like, I'm gonna go into the other room, we're gonna talk real quick, we're gonna have a little powwow, like you guys aren't invited, but we're gonna go talk and figure out what we need to do. And,
but as soon as you do that, everyone at the table is like, oh, totally done.
Yeah.
Exactly. And one thing that you didn't bring up that I love, the one of my favorite mechanisms is that also whoever gets the most votes does get eliminated, but also everybody who doesn't vote for them also gets eliminated. So you're always under the wire.
You gotta be on board the big train. That's right.
Yeah. It's like, what is everybody secretly conspiring? Oh, you're going to kill me. Okay, I better vote for me then. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And one of the funniest things I've seen playing this game is when you're playing with adults. What's interesting is that adults are pretty reserved, and when they sit down to play a board game, they're sitting in their chairs.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna like change that much during the game. You play with kids, and it's weird that you can play this game with kids because it's about murdering everyone at the table. But
kids are the best people to play with that. They're vicious.
Yeah. I've definitely done it, and what's great about playing with young kids, and I during those demos I always like soften the words about what's happening a little bit just so it's not as aggressive. But they hop up and run around the table and whisper in each other and conspire. Like, it's a totally different game because, adults could do that too, but we're all like, oh, we're at a table. That's what we do now. But you could. The other thing is that the game starts changing strategy and feel based on the size or shape of your table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because who you feel adjacent to starts forming early alliances, which never hold up. But it changes. Like, is it going to be this side of the table against this side of the table? So if it's a round table, that changes completely.
Right. It's like we're not going to go to North End versus us now.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, that was dead last. Our next one is Paramedics Clear. Now, Paramedics Clear is, if I'm not mistaken, you are based off of being a paramedic, and your ultimate goal is, yes, you want to save as many people as possible, but everything is really frantic, and you might be able to pass some of your patients to other people and cause them to deal with the problem instead. Now, in full disclosure, I'm going to call him out real quick. He used to be a medical transport, Daniel, so he always gets upset at games, not specifically this one, but any game that's like, well, that's not how it works in the real medical field.
I can tell you this is not how it works.
So yeah, let's talk about Paramedics Clear.
Yeah, so this is a game by Gary Kagan. And what's interesting about Paramedics and why I loved it is that it does include a timer that adds real tension to the game. And when he pitched it to me, he pitched it with an app that he had created. And essentially, it was a very rough version of what exists now for the game, but it was an EKG, boop, boop, that was, counting down the seconds. And as you got closer to, time out, it would start, sounding like it was coding, like, and then finally it's just going to flatline because you haven't saved them in time. That timer and that thematic ended up, people stopped treating these cards as cards that I have to, mentally puzzle together. Do I have the right things, spend the resources to get the tokens to save the patient? They became critical supplies that this guy's going to die. Like, people would get, like, really, really emotionally invested. And I loved that it would do that. In fact, it was such a high-tension game. People would play one game, and they're like, oh my God, okay, all right, something else now. Which is probably what ended up holding it back in the end, because it did its job so well. In it's not that it simulated, what it's like to be a paramedic. But I have had paramedics who've come up and said it delivers the emotion of being and for that reason, they really enjoyed it. In fact, one paramedic told me that he brought it to his station house, and they would play off hours just because it was a challenge for them.
That's awesome. Like, I mean, they must either really enjoy their jobs or really hate themselves. I mean, one of my favorite things about it is like watching or looking at the accidents. Like, you don't get to read them as well when you're actually playing the game, but like going through it, I brought a few. It's brought a knife to a gunfight, cell phone explosion, hit by a meteor, electrocution, like that. And I remember there was a promo for this. I think it was like being ran over by a convention crowd or something.
Yeah, it was. It launched during Gen Con 50, so we had a Gen Con 50 stampede.
So what I like about it is that the artwork actually matches like the little artworks that you see in like medical machines and stuff like that, or the do not touch and.
Yeah, well, so again, sometimes we've been talking a little bit here about art direction in some cases. It was really important for this game, for its cover, to convey the emotionality, the tension, and the real-life situation that I wanted you to experience while playing. I didn't want you to be, like, trying to math out the game. I wanted you to react as a human involved in a crisis. So that realism that Eric Wilkerson brought to the cover, that's something that I felt was really important.
Yeah.
But the actual accidents, the worst thing in the world would be if I had tried to illustrate those as real things. Because, quite honestly, it's already upsetting when you lose a patient in this game. And you will lose patients in this game. There's just, at some point you're like, that's it. Either I ran out of time or resources or whatever, and this guy's just not going to make it. Well, I mean, if you had to see actual blood or any representation of someone in a real dire situation, well, we start crossing the bounds to what's fun and what's too real.
Yeah.
So having these, stick figure representations and having there be some humor in the actual accidents, that became important for gameplay, to make it so it was not a downer, but you could still, you don't feel bad giving an urgent care patient to someone just to watch them sweat it. So, and some of them were like, office shenanigans, and you see one guy rolling someone in an office chair across the floor, so it's, but in any case, yeah, it's a game that delivered the visceral feel that I wanted it to, with a very clean mechanic.
That's cool. All right, and we're going to go into another game here that I'll let you decide if we want to talk about it, given that we're all staying at home right now, due to COVID-19, which there's no confusion on that, and that's Biotics, with germ meeples.
Too soon? Yeah.
Too soon? Yeah, no, maybe.
No, it's totally fine. No, Biotics is great fun. Developed by Zachary Huff. This is a game where you are a lab assistant trying to grow microbes in your petri dish, and they're extremely volatile compounds. So the petri dish has a certain number of spots for each color type of biotics that you might have, and if you ever get more than you have room for in your petri dish of that color, they overpopulate, and then they react. And each of the colors reacts in a different way. Sometimes you've got to, they'll blow up in your face. They might cause you to steal something from someone else or give away different tokens to other players, causing chain reactions. But it's a game where your score is wildly volatile. It goes up and down and all over the place. And then finally, someone draws the timer out of the bag, and you score right there, and you play with 3 rounds. But it's a game that, again, it's a Smirk and Dagger game. It's got plenty of take-that opportunities. It's really approachable. Even young kids can play and enjoy this game, so long as they have a little bit of a thick skin when their tray goes kaboom.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a delightful little game. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one a lot, and I like the design that you have with it, with the box insert, having it be like the containment area. You know, I really dig that. And germ meeples. Yeah, little microbes. Now, this was really just before printing on meeple tokens was something you could do. Right.
So sadly, I took a lot of heat for stickers that you have to apply to all 60 of these little tiny meeple germs.
Yeah,
it is a pain.
I kind of have a problem with that because I got these fat sausage fingers over here.
Yeah.
See, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was fine, but I mean, like, you could just play without the stickers. It would work functionally the same, you know?
You can. But everyone wants the cute stickers because they've got cute faces, and it was just more work than people really want. I can't blame anyone, but nowadays you can actually print those things. So, like, when we did Koi, we were able to do that. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Cool. All right. Let's go to our next one, and that is...
Tower of Madness. I actually have not played this one. I've been wanting to. He just never brings it over.
Wait, really? I haven't shown you this one.
No, you haven't.
Okay. This I still happily have in my... I know which shelf it is in my room. Yeah, I know exactly the positioning of it. It's upright, sideways.
I'm a big fan of like H.P. Lovecraft books. The person, not so much, but and so this gives I really want to try this one.
Well, so this after a bit of a design hiatus, where I was basically taking in a whole bunch of other people's designs. This is again one that I designed, and curiously, you asked earlier on, like, what other classic games, you know, did you feel like could use a Smirk and Dagger touch? And this is another time where I actually got inspired by someone else's game, but it's not necessarily the game that you think when you look at Tower of Madness. So first of all, the Tower of Madness, it's a wonderful Cthulhu theme where you are a researcher who is trying to delve into, you know, the unsolvable horrors that lie just beneath the what we see and know. And essentially it's a push your luck dice game, but it's got a dimensional tower that stands about a foot tall, 3 inches wide, filled with marbles, and just festooned, like 30 different green tentacles come out of every side of the tower, holding up all the marbles. So if that reminds you of Kerplunk, you would not be wrong. But that's not what inspired this game.
Okay.
If you ever played a game, a role-playing game, by the way, called Dread. Familiar with it?
I've seen the tabletop episode, and a mutual friend of ours definitely has played Dread. Had his own custom Jenga style tower.
Exactly. Well, Dread, I think, brilliantly decided that as a way to do skill checks in their RPG, you'd have this Jenga tower. So every time you tried to do something and taking a risk, you'd like draw one of the tiles and put it on top. Now, of course, that starts easy, but as the game goes on, it gets progressively more tense, where your actions are leading to, like, you know, imminent disaster. I thought that was amazing to take, like, a dexterity game like that, and have it add this rich tension to a game that had, you know, nothing to do with the core game. You're using that as a way to deliver a feeling. So I was like, well, that's really cool. What other games exist that I could utilize to deliver that same kind of tension to my push your luck dice game?
Wow.
And that's when I said, oh, well, Kerplunk has that same kind of an idea. Although in that game you're trying to avoid all the marbles like falling. In this game, that's not necessarily the case, because a good half of the marbles or more are actually good. You actually want them. They're either going to give you spells that can empower you, or they're going to give you victory points as you are, moving through this, location after location. But it comes at a risk, because some of the marbles will slowly start driving you insane. Or 3 of the marbles in the tower are part of what will actually summon Cthulhu. And if the 3rd green marble drops before you finish your stack of locations, rolling at each one, then Cthulhu rises and game over, nobody wins. Unless during the course of the game, if you have gone insane by getting 4 red marbles, you now join the cult of Cthulhu, trying to bring Cthulhu about. And you can win as a cultist if you are the one who pulls out the tentacle that drops that final green marble.
Nice.
You just summon Cthulhu.
Yep, you could become a betrayer, and then so you're violently pulling out the bottom one every time, and just hoping that entire tower just violently shakes out all the marbles.
Well, you're not allowed to shake it.
You're not allowed to shake it,
but
but you know that the faster you pull that tentacle, somehow that's going to involve everything else. I mean, it's completely flawed logic, but that's how it feels.
You're insane. What do you know?
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense in my mind.
The core of the game, really, though, certainly the eye candy, the drama is all focused on the tentacles and the tower. But the gameplay is really all focused on the challenges of each location and rolling the right thing at the right time. And it was fun developing all those different locations and different rolling challenges as well. So
I actually really like the push your luck dice element into it, because you're just trying to get the 2 highest pair of dice, so you might end up with like
without
a 5 and a 6
failing.
Without failing. But in order to keep from failing, you have to roll a 1, 2, and 3 throughout the entire course of rolling, and you always have to lock at least 1 die. So if I roll like nothing but 6s, of course I want to put 6s as my 2 dice that are going to score, but that makes it that much more unlikely that I'm going to get the 1, 2, and 3 throughout the next potentially 3 rolls. It's a really smart push your luck.
And then the next location is, you have to lock in those last 2 dice as the first 2 things that you do.
Yeah.
Which is almost spelling doom for you. So,
I love that one. That one is probably my favorite location out of all of them. The ones also, I like the ones where you have to lock only like 1 die per roll, and it has to go like in a certain order
in sequence.
Those are super cool. Cool. So that's Tower of Madness. I will bring it over, I promise. And we will play it. All right. So the next one was Roll for Your Life. We've already touched base on that, and we're probably running a little low on time. Let me just clean this up a little bit. Roll. And let's jump ahead. And now some of our viewers will notice that we haven't gotten to Smirk and Laughter yet. We're going to do that afterwards, because chronologically, Woolly Whammoth comes after the Smirk and Dagger line, or Smirk and Laughter line. Sorry. Woolly Whammoth.
Yep. These are, again, friends, Rebecca Blue and Nicholas Corvada. They're designers that typically design for the other side of the market, with more broad scale. So they're pitching Mattel and Hasbro and Haba and stuff like that. And we met when I was doing that same thing, and all of a sudden when I went full time, they're like, we should start pitching you games now. So that's what they did. And Woolly Whammoth is a great beer and pretzels weight game, or family weight, quite honestly. Yeah. But I think both attitudes are serve the game well. It's a game where you're trying to outsmart your opponents. You're a tribe of cavemen, each of you. And you are trying to hunt mammoth by shoving them over the edge of a cliff. And you do that by, you've got a hand of 8 cards, all of which have numeric values, 1 through 4, basically, with some modifiers. And everyone puts down a card, and then you all reveal at the same time. But it's not just the number that you put down, it's all the numbers that everyone put down that everyone has to march forward on their own unique boards. Now, if I'm closer to the edge, you're going to try to play high, so I go flying off of the edge with the mammoth. I still score the meat for getting that mammoth, but I've lost one of my 4 tribesmen. Or you can die in a tar pit, or you can get trampled by a mammoth as they charge back towards you. All things that you can manipulate through the course of the game based on the cards you play. One card might say, 2, take a break. And so you're not moving, but everyone else is being forced forward. Or it might be a modifier where you're going to take a step back. Or it's a 1 charge where after you're all done moving, the mammoths get a flip of a card and they all come running at you. And if you're too close, you're going to get stopped. So it's a great double think. What did they play? What are they likely to play? And, it's one of those great social kind of games.
Yeah, and one thing that really makes this interesting for me is that you're all technically playing the exact same, so you all start at the very beginning, you all have the same cards, you all move the same amount, but as soon as I think it's like a number 1 card, or there's one where you can choose to not move and everybody else moves. My first thought when I saw this, I was like, well, how does anybody gain an advantage over anybody else? You're all playing the exact same thing. And then I think I asked you that, when I saw you at a convention, you were like, oh, just wait. You'll see. And then, sure enough, at the end of the game, nobody has the same layout ever. That's fascinating.
And some of the cards have these little modifier numbers. So it might be a +1 or a -1. And that little modifier is just for you. The big number goes to the group, and the little modifier stays with you. So if you want to move 1 less, you can do that. Plus, each of the tribes has a special ability card. So you can activate it, and all of a sudden, you're moving back 4. Or, there are, other different things depending on, the personality of your tribe. The timid tribe has the, hold back. The aggressive tribe will let you charge forward really fast. There's all kinds of different things.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a fantastic little game. I like that one a lot. All right, Daniel, why don't you take this next one? And that is
The Menace Among Us.
Ooh, okay. I super love The Menace. So I encountered this game. It was done by Jeff Gum. And it was a really cool sci-fi hidden role game. And I come short of saying it's a social deduction game because it's not like other social deduction games, though it scratches a similar itch. In a lot of social deduction games, how you behave, how you feign innocence is far more important than how you play. That's not the case in The Menace Among Us. Through the mechanics of how the game works, and that's what really attracted me to this game. The thematic is you're on a spaceship and it is in dire trouble. Engines are dead. There's only so much air on board, and therefore only so much time. You, as a loyal crew member, must get the power back up to the ship to 100 before all your air runs out and you suffocate to death. However, hidden among the crew are the Menace. And depending on how many players started the game, there's 1 or 2 Menace players, and then maybe a coward who is a flip-flopper. Just wants to survive, right? So if they start the game as a loyal crew member, but once the first Menace shows up, they're like, oh, I need to get on board this escape pod. So they turn Menace. But if both Menaces die, he's got to go back and win with the loyal crew without them killing him. So in any case, this is it's a 50-minute game that's got the same kind of emotional juice as like a Battlestar Galactica, but you're not going to play it for 2 to 3 hours. So you can get in and out with 4 to 8 players, conspiring against each other and trying to suss out who the Menace are. But again, it's not about feigning innocence because all your actions are very hidden. It's all card play. Mm-hmm. So it's about what card you play when you think you're most advantaged, when do you want to take the risk of exposure, but you think you can push things to escalate in a way that they're not going to be able to get back from anyway. And there's also a way to help hide your identity in the onboard computer. The ship itself assumes that as a loyal crew member, you're doing everything you can to fix the ship. And when people go below decks, which is playing a card face down to throw into the pool, if not enough people put cards face down as activities, the ship senses that there's insufficient crew, and therefore the emergency maintenance assistant kicks in enough cards to bring it to half the crew complement. But Emma is also compromised. Yeah. So she's got one terrible card of each type that's in that mix of good cards. And all that does is if the party, if the group decides, oh, you know what, we really suspect you, Daniel, we're going to everyone but you is going to be forced to play a card. And we're going to see, what comes up. Well, Emma now adds 3 cards, and there's always this plausible deniability. That was not me. That must have come from Emma.
Yeah.
And so it's just, and eventually you start seeing patterns, and therefore towards the end of the game you can make educated guesses about who's who. But unlike a game like Werewolf, and one of the issues I have with Werewolf is, round 1, you just don't like the look of somebody. You're like, them, Werewolf, and everyone gangs up.
Yeah.
This, if you decided to try to vote someone out and secure them below decks, exiling them, and you're wrong, and it's a loyal crew member, terrible things happen. There's an actual consequence, and the first consequence is you just took a loyal crew member and you removed all their special abilities from helping you. You took them out of the voting block for the good guys, and you just lost 3 air, and your air keeps on going down. So you cannot go willy-nilly and vote people out. You have to be really pretty darn sure. And that's, I think, what makes the difference in this game. And I think it's a really standout title. It appeals to people who don't necessarily like social. What did I just say?
Social deduction.
Social deduction games.
I'm one of those people, and this does appeal to me. I want to try this.
Exactly, and but at the same time, if you do like them, you're still gonna be like, oh well, yeah, this is a different version, but I dig it. But things that typically bother people about the social deduction games are not really as present here.
Yeah, right. And I remember, what is the gun called? I think it's like the decider. I'm sorry, I almost made you spit up your water. My apologies.
It's called the voting pistol.
The voting pistol.
Yeah, it's this lovely dimensional cardboard prop that sits in the middle of the table, and it just represents the tension of the game. But it's not really there to shoot anyone with per se. But when you think, you could debate long and hard who you think is a menace. As soon as someone picks up the pistol and holds it up, they're like, there's going to be a vote right now, people. No takebacks. And you've got a couple more last minute defenses or accusations or justifications, and then it's vote time. Honestly, it was not part of the original design, and I found there was no great way to end the debate on are we going to vote? And by putting this simple mechanic in, one, it's got great table appeal. It's got great drama in the game, and just it's fun to pick up that pistol and just say, "Yeah, right now."
That's great. So that was The Menace Among Us. So we're at last year still, and then now the first game of 2020 that we're getting to as far as the Smirk Dagger line, the Deadlies.
The Deadlies. So the Deadlies is Paul Saxberg game, and he is over at Roxley Games, best known for Dice Throne.
Oh, okay.
this is a game that he developed and they looked at, and while they loved the design, they decided that it wasn't necessarily the kind of game that Roxley does. So he brought it over. He let me look at it. He's like, listen, I don't trust a lot of people with this thing, but I would trust you. And it is a delightful, dastardly game based on the 7 Deadly Sins, where you are trying to get rid of all your cards as quickly as you possibly can. And they all have the sins depicted as cute but evil animals. So, for example, Wrath is a very hateful-looking bunny with big demon horns coming out. What's wonderful about it is you can play this game with pretty much anybody in your family, even if they're not gamers. It's a very lightweight style game. Non-gamers will say, "Oh, I get it. It's kind of like Uno. You're trying to get rid of all your cards." But the gamer in you will say, "Oh yeah, but every card has a really cool thematic ability that pairs with the demon that we're talking about." So, so there's just lots of opportunities to do horrible things to people, and trying to load them back up with cards as you try to get rid of your hand. And so there's like trust exercises, push your luck, all kinds of little nuanced things that are part of the suits of the game. And it plays in like 30 minutes. It's like a $15 game. It's a lark, and you absolutely love playing it. By the way, we are going to be at Digital Origins next week. Ooh. And if you have not played the Deadlies, you can sign up to play in one of our events at Origins Online. And you can play with one of the team who will show you how to play and get you going on Tabletop Simulator.
So I got to ask about the bunny on Wrath. Was that because of Monty Python and the Holy Grail? Is that where the idea came from?
No. However, we've also been asked. It's a jackalope, right? It's like, no, it's like a demon bunny. It's like, yeah, but horns. No, they were just a lot of the animals were something that that Paul actually came up with. And the original versions, he had his daughter, I think, draw, which were very cute. But I ended up then sourcing those illustrations out. Leah Furman did them, and I was looking for something. I was like, listen, it's got to be a cute game, right? I want everyone to be able to approach the 7 Deadly Sins with without anything, but I want it to be like edgy. Like if Kid Robot was going to make this game, right. I want cute, edgy, like designer toy illustrations, and she's like, got it, and she totally did, and they're great.
That's awesome.
I like it. I do need to try this one.
Yeah, it's a really neat shedding game, and each one has its own ability. I like it a lot. You
should come and play at Origins with us.
All right. Yeah.
I'll try to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know if it costs anything? This is off topic, but Origins. I know you have to buy a ticket to do it, right?
So Digital Origins is a pay what you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can go and play in the events for free, unless the publisher is also charging something. We are not. Right. But if you want to support Origins, obviously they lost their entire event this year, so so you can pay for a ticket, and I think they reward you with certain different things, depending on how much you give them. But you can come and enjoy the entire show for free as well.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you've never been to a convention before, this is your opportunity to bridge that gap in a way.
Well, I mean, it's not going to be the same. It can't be.
Yeah.
But my high hopes for it is, but before COVID, I never went on Tabletop Simulator to play a game. I never, tried to experience a lot of the stuff that is actually out there and pretty interesting now.
Yeah.
As a result of COVID, though, we're even doing a lot of prototyping of our games so that the team can get together and play and test our games. So it's become a really great tool that, it was silly not to have done it before. the events that we're doing, and we're doing 60 different events during Origins online, we're going to be able to seat about 240 people at those events who would otherwise not be able to play our up-and-coming games. So this is actually a really great opportunity for you guys to do that. And, you know, you're going to be hanging with the same people who would have been there to meet you at the booth. They're either going to be my team of instigators, or in some cases, me or the designers. So it's a great way to really have a fun, unique experience.
There's one good thing about having an online con. You won't be coming home with con crud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something very strange has to happen. Your computer might get a virus. I don't know. All right, we're gonna backtrack just a little bit, a couple of years, and now we're gonna go into your other line, and that is the Smirk and Laughter line.
Okay.
And so now this is what we were talking about earlier when you started publishing games that were outside of the Smirk and Dagger wheelhouse, but very much ones that you were passionate about that you wanted to bring on. And so the very first one that I remember from it is Not So Fast.
Yes, indeed. This is Jeff Lye's game. So Not So Fast is, oh my god, it's way more fun than it has any right to be. It is super exciting, and while it's going to put you in mind of a game like Jungle Speed, it is a quick reaction dexterity game. But the difference is that you're not looking for these intricate patterns. It's, you know, and that can actually kind of be a little bit of a brain burn in like a Jungle Speed.
Right.
It's just about the hilarious mistakes you're going to make because of a couple wrinkles that he's thrown in there. But essentially, you're looking for, on the flip of two cards in front of you, just the cards that are in front of the one person, you're looking for a sequence of like 4 matching faces of nuts, like pistachios and walnuts and cashews and that kind of thing. And as soon as you see 4 of a type, not 3, not 5, just 4, you reach out into the center and you grab this chunky wooden token with that nut face on it before anyone else can. But like musical chairs, there's one less than the number of players, so somebody's not going to get one. And then they get all the cards that are mounted as points in front of that player. So it's golf scoring. You want the lowest score.
Okay.
But then there's all kinds of other little like wrinkles in this thing. For example, if you ever see what is it now? If you ever see 7 of a nut, or you see 2 sets of 4, you don't grab the pictured nut. There's also an almond in the center of the table, and everyone then grabs for the almond, and there's only one of them. And if you do, you get to remove your entire points against you from the game. It's like, it doesn't happen much, but it's super dramatic. Or if it's like you see 4 pistachios, you grab the pistachio, and there's only one of those. So since you have it, instead, the way you deliver points is now, because I control it, I'm going to tell you who is taking all the points this turn. It leads to a lot of smashing of knuckles, a lot of ridiculous mistakes. There are also cards, though, that are number cards. And on the side of the table, there are 3 nutty poses. So, for example, one might be bunny ears, one might be arms folded, one might be like touchdown. And if a number 3 comes up, you have to know 3 is bunny ears, and you have to. If you're the last one to make bunny ears, you're taking all the cards. But people will always make mistakes no matter what. You'll either grab the wrong nut, or you're like, what pose are I? And like you get jammed up. You're just constantly laughing in this game. Honestly, it's the most fun game we produced in a very long time.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say about it?
I remember seeing this in the shop a lot of the times, and it would just go down. People would be screaming and yelling. Then you'll hear hand slapping.
Yeah, and then nuts go flying across the room because someone tries reaching it and shoots it out. I remember one of the first times I played this. I already knew the rules because I played it, and I'm doing this not so much as a self-serving memory, but also to promote next week, and you'll see why in a minute. At when we played this, I remember it was like a Friday after Gamma, and everybody was pretty much leaving, but I think a lot of us had to wait for flights. I remember you had to wait for a flight. You didn't have until like the afternoon. And and as with myself, I was waiting for my wife to land from a flight coming in so we could drive to LA. And that was, we're just hanging out in the Peppermill, like on a booth. And I taught this to Justin DeWitt and Anne Marie, his wife. And and then I did the demo for you, and oh my god, that was so loud. We were disrupting the people in the restaurant. They kind of like, but then half of the other people came over and started watching us. The main reason I bring it up is not only is that one of my favorite times just playing with you guys, but next week Justin DeWitt is going to be our guest for Fireside Games.
Oh, so, they're great. I love those guys.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Fireside is amazing. Some of my all-time favorite people, as well as we're also going to get Jamie Stegmaier as our guest in the afternoon as well. So definitely tune in for that as well.
Very cool.
Yeah. He's just calling in all the favors.
I don't know about favors, but I hope this helps the promotion. And it's a fun walk down memory lane. All right, let's go to one of the most serene games. Absolutely gorgeous art.
Very gorgeous.
Just one of the most zen board games since like Tokaido and like a bunch of the other ones from back in the day where you could just sit down and just relax. And that's Koi.
Interesting description for this one. I get it, and yet.
Unless.
Right. So Koi is a game by Bill Lasik, and what I think really delivers that feeling is the artwork of Christy Freeman, the illustrator. This is a game where you're a koi fish trying to get the best meal you possibly can, and it features like this hex board movement and cards that when you play them have a program move, moving up the card, and it might be straight and turn one hex facing and leap out of the water and skip a space. And once you play it, that's the program move that you end up executing. Though unlike Robo Rally, you're not sequencing a whole bunch of those and having to do the Robo Rally dance necessarily. But it's a strategy game. It is about strategic movement, getting across the board. But the cards themselves, the way the movements are, they kind of simulate the way fish actually move. So you don't. It's very rare for you to actually shoot across the board straight. You're meandering and just moving like a fish. Right. And then trying to put all those moves together so they make sense so you can get where you want to go and gobble up the dragonflies or the frogs to get points. That's what the game kind of is. And of course, then the weather changes on the board with every round and creates some variety. And of course, one of the fun parts about this is you add tokens to the board as you beautify the pond with lily blossom, lilies, lily pads, cherry blossoms, decorative stone, frogs, all kinds of different things. Most of which either have a little benefit for you or you're going to slow down other players a little bit. So it's interesting. The gameplay in this, if you want, it can be actually pretty Smirk and Daggery.
Yeah.
But it's the thematic was just so serene and beautiful. I was like, well, I don't know what to do with this one. I guess it's going to be Smirk and Laughter.
Well, the reason why I think you made the right choice with it being under Smirk and Laughter is because, it does have that ability. You can really mess up people's plans, for turns in advance, but really, you're kind of okay with it because of how you feel while playing it. It's so you drop this, the lily pad and then everything, or cherry blossom, and everything kind of gets shoved away, and it's this beautiful little ripple, even though now I'm never going to win. But at least there was a pretty ripple, and then, how can you be mad at a cherry blossom? I feel it works.
I know I mentioned this a lot, but the art in this game is just gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The story about discovering Christie was that I had a vision for what I wanted for art on this game. And all the typical places I would go for illustration didn't really have what I wanted. So I started Google searching koi fish illustrations, which was a pretty random way to try to find an illustrator.
Right.
And I found a piece of artwork that I was just like, oh my god, this is it. This is gorgeous. And it was very similar to what the cover ended up being. It was like this really bright red and black koi fish. And so I followed all the breadcrumbs and a couple different ways to actually end up over at Christie's website. Well, Christie is a fine gallery artist out in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And so once I discovered that, I was like, well, that's not going to work out very well. A gallery artist is a very different mindset.
Yeah.
So, but I said, well, what the hell? I'll reach out. So reached out and saw, whether she was interested, described the project, what it was going to be. And not only was she like super excited to be part of it, I actually had to tell her to raise her price because
wow.
she was almost going to give it away, and I was like, tell you what, thanks, that's great, but I think it's going to be more work than you assume, and feel free to come back and let me know as this thing develops. But just stunning work. And again, if you look at the cover, that piece of artwork came in this big. It's it's actually over here in my house. She painted it on a canvas, and it was actually very hard to proof initial concepts because she was using this. It was a glow in the dark white paint on a white canvas, so it was white on white.
Oh, wow.
And then she came back with watercolors on the canvas and other things like, in fact, the spot right behind the koi logo is actually a coffee stain. She used coffee to bring that kind of brown texture.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's just like, she's just, it's real hang on the wall art. And she did it for the board and all the weather cards, and it's stunning.
Yeah, it's very.
Wow, that's awesome. What a home run with that one, huh?
Yeah, just incredible. Yeah, and it it really honors the spirit of the game that Bill brought. So
that's great.